Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Riley and I'll be hosting this webinar for you today. I hope you're all well. I'm just waiting for the slides for today to load. Just give me one moment. Great. Okay, so before we get started, I'd just like you all to go to your notifications and settings. Sorry, this includes you, AK. If everyone just goes to their notification settings now, just untick all your boxes underneath notification settings, and that just will ensure that you won't receive any pop-ups or sounds during the session, which can be quite disturbing when you're trying to watch. Now, today's technical topic webinar is about introducing augmented virtuality to Industry 4.0 and beyond. And today's webinar is being presented by Dr. Akhlaka Rahman, who is a lecturer with us at EIT and a course coordinator in our Industrial Automation Engineering School. And just going over some common questions and facts that we get during the session. So basically, everyone in this session, everyone that's registered for the webinar will receive a copy of the PDF slides and a link to the video recording within the next 2 business days via email. I'll likely do that tomorrow. We also provide a free digital certificate of attendance for live attendees. So there will be a link and a QR code that I'll provide at the end of the session if you would like to request one. And I will also likely send those out tomorrow. So just briefly about EIT before we get into the session. So we are an engineering specialist education provider. We deliver a range of programs specializing only in engineering. We have short courses that we like to call professional certificates. We have diplomas and advanced diplomas in the vet sector. We also have undergraduate and graduate certificates, bachelor's and master's degrees, and a Doctor of Engineering. We have industry-oriented programs, so our programs are regularly updated to stay relevant with the industry and ensure that you have the best graduate outcomes. Our vocational programs and higher education degrees are registered and accredited by the Australian government. And we do have courses that are also internationally recognised under the 3 accords, so the Dublin, the Sydney and the Washington Accord. And in particular, I think there's quite a few industrial automation programs that we have that are internationally accredited. We also have industry experienced lecturers, so not only those who are involved in academia, but also we have lecturers that are working full-time or they're working elsewhere other than lecturing for EIT. And we ensure a better learning experience, so that you can have lecturers that have industry experience as well. We have a unique delivery model, so we use these live and interactive webinars, similar to the one you were in today. There's about 160 of you in the session at the moment, but we have much smaller class sizes than that. So we like to promote a more interactive session in our classes if you're studying one of our courses. And our unique delivery model also comprises of our expert lecturers, our dedicated learning support for our students, and state-of-the-art technologies such as hands-on workshops, remote laboratories, and simulation software. I'll now hand over to Dr. Akhlaka Rahman also known as AK. I'll hand over to you now, AK, and yeah, thanks for presenting today.
Thank you so much, Riley, and appreciate the good start to the presentation. So, as Riley mentioned, my name is Dr. Akhlaqur Rahman. Akhlaqur Rahman, everyone calls me AK. Easy to remember and pronounce as well. So, I've been with EIT for almost 3 years now at this point, and in the academia for 10 years or so. I have been, of course, involved in the industrial automation space at EIT. We have several courses at industrial automation and as a result, my topic also is, of course, related to Industry 4.0, which is at the current state of industrial automation. I completed my PhD from Swinburne beforehand, and of course, I'm involved with IEEE at the moment. I'm the secretary for IEEE Victoria. And of course, besides that, I'm also involved in quite a lot of research that involves topics such as Industry 4.0, Industrial IoT, virtual manufacturing system, a lot of those topics that we'll actually be covering today as well. So with that in mind, I guess we can get to the start of the presentation. So mainly, as the title suggested today, the term augmented virtuality in Industry 4.0 and beyond. Now, while that is focusing on a specific topic, the reality is that actually covers the whole range of topics, and that is what we are actually hoping to introduce to you today. Now, some of it will, of course, be known to you, having already been. Some of you may be in that space or interested in that space. And the interesting thing is, a lot of the topics that we'll be covering today, you are actually using it in your day-to-day life as well. So we'll start with the topic called Industry 4.0, which will be an introduction. As I mentioned, it relates to industrial automation. We have lots of courses at EIT here. Then what we'll be covering is topic called virtual reality and augmented reality, something that you have heard about, you probably are using to an extent, but it would be good to know how that relates to the industrial aspect as well. Then we're going to talk about mixed reality, which is the upcoming topic that everyone is talking about and a lot of research going on, and how that relates to augmented virtuality, which we, of course, will be explaining what that is. And we'll finish with some of the use cases of mixed reality that will probably be coming in Industry 4.0 and beyond in the future. And with that in mind, although the topic is about these four, I always do this. I add a couple of slides on, hopefully, as some of you are engineers or potential engineers, what's beyond Industry 4.0, something that you all should be aware of. Let's say something that will be there in next 10 years or 15 years that will probably you will be able to see that, and you can get yourself prepared for. So this is where the topics would be. So starting with the term Introduction to Industry 4.0. So before we get started, can I quickly ask, we have almost 180 plus people here, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when I use the term Industry 4.0? I mean, just in the chat box, just write something that you think about when you hear the term Industry 4.0. I see Nisha mentioning IoT, Toby mentioning IoT, Marek mentioning data, things sorted, continuing, creative learning, 5G, robotics, IoT, 5G, 6G, IIoT, automation, evolving technology, AI, machine learning, data collection. Amazing. Thank you so much for everyone just responding so quickly. Amazing to see all your interest in these topics. Big data, yes, that's another one. Integrating all these topics, I'm seeing someone mentioning a digitized system, industrial automation, and IT. Well, it looks like all of you know what this is about. That makes my job super easy. So the interesting thing is, when we talk about Industry 4.0, we are talking about all of these and more. But all of these together, that's what Industry 4.0 is. So to summarize in a very simple manner, Industry 4.0 will be about smart and connected devices because of all these technologies that you are mentioning. Now, a quick recap for everyone, or some of you who may not be aware of all of this and probably trying to learn it for the first time. That's also fine as well. So a quick history lesson of how Industrial 4.0 came into being. So Industry 4.0 ultimately is the fourth revolution in the industrial progression. So if you start with technologies from Industry 1.0, that was about more than 200 years back, about 1784, that was because of, well, excuse me, revolution that came in the agricultural production for technologies due to invention of steam engines. And after that, about 100 years later, when electricity came into being, that actually started another technological revolution with the invention of conveyor belts, electric power, telegraphs, assembly line production, and so on. After another 100 years came IT technology, such as computers, that actually allowed you to operate, let's say, a certain process with computer technologies, and that was the third revolution. And about a decade back came the fourth revolution with the advent of technologies such as IoT, Internet of Things, which allowed devices to communicate among themselves, and that actually resulted in operations, not, or rather humans not having to be involved in the root level operations, but you can monitor them from a higher level. So that was the fourth revolution, or Industry 4.0, which are the new digital technologies, as Prashant is mentioning in the comment. Now, the future of what Industry 5.0 might look like, that's not really the focus of today's presentation, but I will mention that at the end of it. But for now, we are in Industry 4.0, and as everyone mentioned, it has different aspects to it. Now, one thing that's very important and goes hand in hand with Industry 4.0 is the term industrial IoT. So the question would be again, what is industrial IoT? Well, the interesting thing is, if you know what IoT is, which a lot of you probably know, understanding from the comments, IoT means Internet of Things. So devices that can be connected, right? And they are also connected to the internet, which allows them to send information among each other. Similar to how we send information among each other through messages, chats, WhatsApp, email. Similarly, devices can send information using the internet among themselves, hence the term Internet of Things. Now, if we use that in an industrial context, that becomes Industrial Internet of Things. Now, if you see this diagram here, this basically explains how Industry 4.0 and industrial IoT have similar objectives, which is why there is an overlap among each other. So ultimately, where Industry 4.0 is using cyber physical systems like robots that has actuators as well as sensors, that actually allows you to automate the processes. The Internet of Things, what it's also doing at the same time is actually allowing you for those devices to communicate amongst each other. So that's how the devices are communicating. At the same time, those devices could be robots or simple sensors. That actually expands the scope of Industry 4.0. So ultimately, when we're talking about the term Industry 4.0, we are talking about devices that can all communicate with each other, and with added technologies such as machine learning, such as artificial intelligence, big data, and all the like augmented reality, virtual reality, and 5G, all these technologies are allowing more and more vast functions of in an industrial operation to be automated. And um, that's good. I can see you mentioned that use the same picture in automation. So that's good. That's a very common picture and makes it easier to explain to everyone what that is. Because what this picture is ultimately showing you is all the different things that can happen in a plant floor because of industrial IoT. So you can have operation processing, different tools can be gathering information, sensors are gathering information and sending it to the cloud. As a result, you are getting first-hand information of how an operation is running, not by employees on the ground floor, but from the devices that is actually using technology such as machine learning and data analytics to provide you how the operation is going. And as a result, more than that, what it's doing is it can provide you information such as if is the operation running well. If it is running for another few days, will there be some problems that we can fix? So that's basically allowing the operation to run a lot better. So that's what industrial IoT is doing. Anyway, so ultimately, industrial IoT and Industry 4.0 have similar objectives. And again, the presentation topic isn't really Industry 4.0, but it is important to know what Industry 4.0 is about. So they have different applications and different areas that you can work on. You can think of areas such as autonomous vehicles like smart cars, where the idea would be devices can communicate with each other. Robotics, with cloud robotics, cloud can help robots control their operations, making the process a lot more smoother, efficient, and automated. Different industrial manufacturing processes can now be automated, or parts of it can now be automated due to technologies of Industry 4.0 with smart grids, such technologies as two-way communication between the devices that makes the communication faster, that makes demand response more efficient. So the power industry is also benefited by it as well. And smart city, even the societal aspect, which we'll actually discuss later on as well, that actually improves due to technologies that in your day-to-day life in a smart city can provide better lifestyle to its um, to its applicants or to its citizens, basically. Just to finish up on the Industry 4.0, some of the key components, and luckily a lot of you have already mentioned these technologies, that actually helps the Industry 4.0 survive, or rather thrive, I would say, is technologies such as cloud computing, where a lot of the information can now be sent to the cloud instead of having a physical storage in the locally. You can send it well to a physical storage outside through the cloud computing. That makes the process faster. So if you need thousands of sensors to run and operate and run data analytics on them together, you need a super fast server, and that's where cloud computing comes into play. When that also allows with the big data analytics, so you can store big data and you can do data mining. You can, let's say, get data for last 2 weeks of, or let's say last 5 weeks of data, and based on they make some predictions of when a particular machine might stop working if it keeps running at this pace. What does that, how does that help you? You can make maintenance, or you can do maintenance to that machine without having to wait for it to stop running. So you are actually doing a preventive work rather than let's say a post accidental work and that sort of thing. Internet of Things we already explained to you. 3D printing is another excellent technology that helps with, let's say, manufacturing devices. And let's say you want to make some changes to the device. Instead of having to do it in the hardware, you can make a 3D model of it and make some changes to it and see how this that product might look like. So in an initial stage of design, now you can do some 3D printing, and that might help you with making the whole production process a lot more smoother. Cybersecurity, that's another interesting topic, because cybersecurity is an aspect that will be a very important part of your and my and everyone's lives in the next few decades, because nowadays the most important thing is data. Well, I would say one of the most valuable things is data. Data is very powerful. The more data you have, the more you can use that information for different aspects. So cybersecurity will be a very key factor, especially with techniques such as machine learning. Cybersecurity can be more powerful, and that needs to be in an industrial environment. Then you have robots, the digital twin, and so on. We really don't want to go too much into that area because that's not the scope. above this presentation, but the idea is all these technologies together can help different aspects of an industrial operation. Thus, the Industry 4.0 or the operation flow operations in an Industry 4.0 environment can be more automated, and it allows humans to move away from the factory floor or the bottom operational floor and be involved in more higher level management decisions, monitoring decisions, and so on. Now, another technology that I didn't mention here was mentioning augmented reality. In fact, augmented reality and virtual reality both have aspects that can be very helpful in an industrial environment, and that is what will be our main focus of the presentation. So that's why I haven't mentioned it here. We'll discuss it later on. Just to finish up on the Industry 4.0 and just hammering down the point that how Industry 4.0 is so beneficial for you. The different features of Industry 4.0, scalability. Now you can actually scale your operations from a smaller batch to a longer batch, and this faster turnaround and operations can happen because you have a lot more machines in the operation floor, and you can make changes to them at different levels. It's not that the design level, the assembly line, and the delivery model, all of them are all connected with each other under one umbrella, and based on what is the demand, you can make changes at a very early level, and you can customize it as well. So these two are actually connected. Security we already mentioned. With more powerful machine learning and AI technologies, the threat also becomes harder, but security aspects become stronger as well. Control and visibility also becomes a very important issue. As I mentioned, the whole okay, I would say one of the major reasons for Industry 4.0 to work properly is the fact that the operations can now be visible. So you actually have a way that all the different aspects, from the design aspect to different aspects of the production line to the delivery point, all of it is now under one umbrella, and you can all see different aspects all working together, and how one aspect will actually impact the whole operation. You can predict that. So that actually makes the operations a lot more agile, a lot more flexible, the process more efficient, reduces cost, and so on. All of it is ultimately connected. So when we're talking about the Industry 4.0, and that's what today's presentation, one of the areas is. So what's in it for you? So what's in it for you to attend this presentation today, and what can you learn from it? So I've just pointed down 2 or 3 points, of course, just for you to think, questions to ponder, right? Do you believe that the digital transformation to Industry 4.0 could or has boosted global competitiveness? So are you seeing basically Industry 4.0 improving on what the previous status was, and how that is, impacting the world? A very critical point for you to think as well, and basically reflect: to what extent are you integrating different aspects of Industry 4.0 in your work, application, or industry? Now, let's say you might be working somewhere and they are using different aspects of Industry 4.0, but may not be using the term. So think about that. And if that is something that you are doing, or you may find an area where you can do it, that can be a benefit, that can be a positive that you are taking out of this presentation. And as I mentioned, since one of the main focuses is augmented virtuality, so the third question in this case is, Petit, can VR or AR be part of that transformation for you? VR means virtual reality, and AR means augmented reality. I'm just writing it in the chat box for everyone as well. So we'll discuss what these are, how they relate with each other, and where they're differently used. So that's what we'll be covering today. And that's what the focus is from now on. So let's start with that. We'll start with virtual reality. And again, as we're going to explain virtual reality, it will come to the point where you have to talk about augmented reality as well. So Tha is mentioning we have integrated robust electric tools and tracking of vehicles via scan, which automatically prints documents and related data. So you have already, the MES, yeah, I get it. So that's actually a higher level of the automation, well, the triangle or the pyramid, as they call it. So that's actually very good that you guys are already doing that. So any aspects, whether it's using AR, VR, whether you're using robots, a digital twin, anything that you're using, you are ultimately a part of Industry 4.0, which is good. Now, the next topic we have is virtual reality. So now we are going to start discussing about what is virtual reality. So before we start, let's give you an example of what virtual reality is, or something that you might be doing in a day-to-day life that makes it easier for you to relate to it. So let's say a lot of you, well, some of you in your earlier ages may have played games. Computer games used to be very popular. Now is the age of Xbox, PlayStation. Some of you might be familiar with it. Some of you may are still playing it. Some of you may have played with it. Some of you have brothers, kids, friends, younger brothers or sisters who might be playing on you know, these PlayStation or Xbox devices. So you may have seen them around. So with all these devices, for example, PlayStation has a virtual reality device called PlayStation VR. What basically it does is you put on those headsets that you can see. If you just zoom in here, you'll see that on your side as well. These headsets, when you put them on, right, you are taken to an artificial environment where you are interacting with that environment and all those people and all those environmental creatures, or whether there are other people there or other artificial beings there, that you are communicating with them as you would do in a real environment. That is a virtual reality. So when we talk about virtual reality, it is basically an artificial, VR goggles is another one. A VR, virtual reality, is an artificial environment that is created with software and presented to the user in such a way that the user suspends belief and accepts it as a real environment. Okay, so normally when you are using, as let's say, Dinolin was mentioning about VR goggles. So if you put on a VR goggle and yes, metaverse is a perfect example of a virtual reality universe. So metaverse has been a big topic lately as well, with Facebook changing its name to Meta as well, because they are also moving into that direction as well. And there has been a lot of discussion that are there talking about that. Yes, I'm just not visible for the moment. I'll come back in a few minutes as well. Don't worry about it. Thanks for noticing though. So ultimately, with virtual reality, the idea is you're using a computer-generated simulation and of a three-dimensional image or an environment where you can interact in a real or a physical way like you do in real world. That's what virtual reality is. Now, when we talk about virtual reality, there are different devices. And again, some of them actually have discontinued, but some of them are still active. You have things such as sorry, you have things such as Oculus VR, Google. I think there was HTC Vive, Unity. There are Microsoft HoloLens. I think they're more onto augmented though, but there are different devices that are using with the software and taking you to a virtual environment. So the example of the gaming that I wanted to do was with the PlayStation VR. You put on the headset, and let's say how you used to play with computers back in the day, a game where you are a character and you are running through the game. With the VR, imagine you are seeing what that character is seeing. So you are inside the game, you are moving your hands and you're putting some, let's say, pressing some buttons, and that is allowing to you to move from right to left in the game, and is in your headset, you are seeing it as if the person is looking at it. Okay, so that's basically what VR is doing. Now, it's very important to understand that when you are using or you are a part or you are part of virtual reality, you are in an artificial environment. Nothing about that is real or physical environment. It's just an artificial environment that has been created for you to interact with. So imagine that same scenario that I'm telling you. Let's say it's me. This is AK. So I am using this device that I have connected. I have the PlayStation connected here, Kinect connected here. That's taking my measurement. So what it's doing is it's taking my measurements and it's taking helping me create a model of me, so that in the game it can put me there using the software. So let's say if I'm using my hands in the game, that character is using his hands or her hands. Similarly, if I am moving, let's say I'm playing a game of tennis inside the game, we are there moving as well. So that's what VR is all about. Or we can, yeah, as Rajesh mentions, we can just experience another world through VR or another dimension through VR. So that's what the idea is. So there are different devices, and again, we won't go into very specifics, but the idea is you have the headset, you need some softwares, and you need some tools like controllers, a battery pack, things like that. So you have the hardware that you need, like a headset, and some software that puts you inside that environment. That's what virtual reality is doing. Now, the interesting part is what we can do with it, right? So that's the interesting thing. So the idea is, um, sorry, I think I got lost here as well. So yeah, the idea is what is a Kinect device? So Kinect is, I think, a part of PlayStation that allows you to basically it connects the sensors there. It basically takes into input your gestures and motions, and it detects you. That helps you basically put you in that game. Okay, that's what the Kinect device is. You can think of it like a linking device that connects your physical appearance within the software that helps you connect to the game. So now talking about the VR application, so this is actually the interesting part. So when we talk about the VR applications, there are different aspects where virtual reality can actually be used in different industries. Again, we won't go into all of them. We will leave some of it to your imagination as well. However, we will talk about some of them. I can see Ahmed has mentioned the maintenance training, right? So the maintenance training, I think Samir also mentioned how does that sensor work? I think what the sensor basically does, it takes into account your it detects your body and your motion. It can capture it basically. We won't really have time to go into too much of the details there, but that's what, in summary, that's what it basically does. I think Ahmed is talking about the VR applications, about maintenance training, operation personnel. So training will be a common application that different aspects where VR or different industries where VR can be used. So anywhere where you see the VR in, let's say, medical training, VR in education, VR in military, in different aspects, actually the maintenance or the training aspect of it is where VR can actually be helpful. So for example, when you talk about military purposes, such as simulation of flights, vehicles, or some sort of medic training, all of them, you can do it in a virtual boot camp. So what they're doing is they're putting the people that in environment where you are, let's say, seeing what you would be seeing in a, let's say, military operations, such as a flight. So a lot of your movement you can do and basically train. You are trained to learn. This is how you move your hands. This is how you move your legs, And instead of having to do that in the real environment, you are doing that in a virtual environment in a much more safer manner. Another one you can see here is VR in education. So education, you can also create it as a platform that can, safely train children and teach them some social skills. Let's say, yeah, there are different aspects. You are showing them different fruits or different animals, and instead of having to take them to that place or showing them just images, you are actually taking them to an environment where they have these virtual creatures around them, and they're seeing it. Just makes it a bit more interactive as well. How does it work in real-time quality control? I'm not sure where that question comes in, Gustav. Oh, sorry, no, Bhakt. I'm not sure where that question comes in. I'll probably try to answer that at the end when I have talked about mixed reality. Gustav mentions, do remote surgeries integrate both VR and AR? Yes, they actually use technologies such as mixed reality, which we'll discuss as well. How VR technology works with instrumentation and control in oil and gas. We'll actually discuss that in a minute, like how different industries can use the mixed reality technologies. That we'll actually cover that later on. So again, with technologies such as sports as well, VR has adopted training aid for assisting and assessing athletic performance and examining techniques as well. So a lot of those training techniques ultimately is where VR can put you in that environment and make you train without having to go into that particular environment. So this is where VR comes into play. Now, talking about some Industry 4.0 application, and again, becomes a little bit more generic, not specific to a particular industry, but any type of industrial training, whether it's instrumentation control or power industry or any other industry, is where VR can come into play. Because what it does is it comes with the ability to train employees in various complex machines and systems, but in an immersive environment. So as long as you can prepare a model, like a pseudo model of what the actual plant might look like, you can train that employee of how to operate a particular machine in that environment, and as a result, he is learning it in the real world ultimately. So he's implementing it in the virtual world and learning the steps, but using it in the real world. The other one is industrial design. So product design is another area where VR has the potential to transform the industry. So initially, if you like softwares like CAD, where employees are normally using them to learn, or basically in construction work or in different type of complex design that they're constructing, but they are to an extent restricted. But with the virtual reality, it provides them um, yeah, so yeah, with the idea here, what's happening is all the product designs can be done in a virtual environment as well, and that can actually be further aided with augmented reality, which we'll discuss later on. That will actually make the designs, you can see with your in a virtual environment how the design looks like without having to do it in a computer or without having to do it in the real world. So that's where the industrial design also gets helped as well. Flexible communication and collaboration. So that's another thing where with VR now, we are with the pandemic, you have seen that a lot of businesses, it was very hard to communicate on site, a lot of meetings, it was hard to do on site, a lot of let's say events, it was hard to do on site. With VR, they will probably bring some opportunities where some events might happen, where people can attend in a virtual manner. So the metaverse is a very good example of that, where social gatherings can happen virtually. So that can be events down the line. And last one is VR in factory planning and inspection. So again, with things such as factory planning and inspection, what they're talking about is when you are trying to set up a factory, for example, instead of doing it all on the software on the computer, you can first create a virtual setup of how the factory, move around the factory to see how that looks like and how that operate, and that basically, yeah, and you can create an avatar and move around, and that can, make the inspection, the planning much more easier. So you're getting a better feel by creating a virtual setup where you can interact with. That's what basically the idea with the VR is, whether it's training, whether it's design, whether it's collaboration, and so on. We have almost finished 40 minutes, so we are a bit tight for time. So I will increase the speed a little bit, but hopefully you guys will be able to understand what I'm covering so far. So we talked about virtual reality, right? Where the idea was that you are putting yourself in a virtual setup, and it's everything in an artificial environment, and you are interacting with it. Now, the idea with augmented reality is, why not do that with some physical world as well? So the idea with the augmented reality is, it is adding digital elements to a live physical view that you are seeing, let's say through a smartphone. So let's say you are looking at this machine here. Someone was looking at this machine, but you put an, let's say, a mobile or a tab in there, and using the app there, you are seeing some digital elements, right? Like a layover on top of that practical setup. A very simple example of that is, if you have ever played the game Pokemon Go. Okay, so if you have ever played the game, a Pokemon Go, well, I think it was 4 or 5 years back, and you could see people running around all near you, mm, just running after something, but it doesn't make sense. So a very simple example of that was Pokemon Go, where you have, let's say, a practical world, but on top, using the app, you are actually seeing a Pokemon that you need to catch. Um, so that's basically an idea. So now in an industrial setup, of course, as you can see, all these devices, basically you have a hardware device in front of you. But imagine using the app, if you put the screen on top of that, it's adding additional digital information on top of it. Just look around you, wherever you are sitting at the moment. It could be a computer, it could be a device, it could be any sort of thing. And if you put, let's say, with that app, if you're putting the screen on top of the device and it's adding digital information for you, that might be helpful. So that might be helpful in different industries, which we'll discuss later on. But that's what the idea with augmented reality is. Now, it's very important to understand. So with the virtual reality, the idea was, it was all about putting you in a virtual environment, artificial environment. You are not interacting with hardware of a physical device. Now, with the augmented reality, the idea is you are interacting to an extent with a digital overlay on top of a physical device. We're interacting with the digital overlay. So it's a physical device and it's adding some digital information on top of it. But still, that digital information and the physical world is not interacting with each other. It's just adding more information on top of that physical world. Okay, that's what augmented reality is. Again, the idea with augmented reality, as they mentioned, you have a real world. Using the software applications, you are adding additional digital overlay or digital information on top of it. So I'm just going to move away slightly faster because we don't have that much time. Similarly, with AR applications, when we talk about the different industries, I will just go through a couple of examples. So gaming, as I mentioned, Pokemon became a trendsetter in the field of AR gaming. Okay, so there were, especially the gaming market, if you would be surprised, is they are expected to reach quite a lot, like from what it is now by the next few years, because of AR technology, because it allows you to do, yeah, because the spectrum has now expanded to 2D and 3D gaming, which has helped a lot. Another industry that has helped a lot is the retail industry, where you have, it gives our shoppers a different opportunity. AR has given them, like, basically like a virtual mirror, where they are using technologies to see, like instead of trial rooms, you can see how different dresses would look on you. It improves the retail experience as well. In an industrial setup, when I am talking about, if you look at different devices and you can collect their information, digital information like temperature, like the correct sensors, um, and different issues that can like information that it can provide on top of it. What that basically does is it provides you some guidance. So instead of like how it works with the virtual reality, where you are completely set up in a virtual world, in the augmented reality, it's on top of a physical device and it's adding information to you. Like as I mentioned, this slide actually does that. So you can see this practical device here on top of it, these are digital information that they're providing on top. You can also see these devices like this hardware device, and they're providing different information that may help you make more informed decision making. That's where augmented reality is coming into play. So as I mentioned, different design and modeling, retail industry, medical industry, all of them will be ultimately benefited from there. So if we go to the point of augmented reality versus virtual reality, so this is actually quite simple, as I mentioned. So with the virtual reality, the idea is you are in a mix of real world, in the virtual reality, you are completely in a virtual world. But with augmented reality, it's a mix of real and virtual world, because it's a real world. On top of it, let's say if this is the device, on top of it, they're adding a digital relay, whereas, digital overlay, whereas with the VR, you are completely being sent into a virtual environment. So that's basically the idea. And just some examples of different devices. Now, what I want to do is, if I were to quickly ask you guys a poll question, right? Let's say, I'm just going to ask you that question here. You're going to see that. I'm just going to put it here. Can you guys see the, oh yeah, I can see some of you can see the, the poll. Can you just quickly maybe see, yeah, I can see if you guys are using your responses quickly. I will see at the end how they respond. So if you're using, let's say, a Snapchat filter, a very popular nowadays, where you have different faces you can make and things like that. Which one are you using? Are you using VR or are you using AR? So virtual reality or augmented reality? I will give you guys about 30 to 40 seconds because we are running a bit short on time. But yeah, if you guys can quickly mention that. I can see a lot of you responding. So that when you talk about the Snapchat filter, what we're talking about is, let's say, all those different faces you can make, all those, even the Facebook Messenger now has them as well. But you are actually adding different colors, different faces, different like emojis and things like that. So yeah, I can see majority of you have suggested that is augmented reality, while most of you suggested that is, less of you suggested that is virtual reality. So that's all right. So thank you for that. Interestingly, what I would suggest is, it is to an extent, Snapchat filter to an extent is augmented reality, but actually it is more than augmented reality. It is actually a part of mixed reality. Okay. So, and the reason I asked you that is because that helps me progress to the next part of mixed reality. But mixed reality, in fairness, is augmented reality 2.0, right? It's an extension of augmented reality. That's what we call mixed reality is actually kind of like an extension of augmented reality. So again, if you have a look at the virtual reality, so far, what we have discussed, it's putting you in a virtual environment. Now, what's augmented reality it's doing is it's basically putting a digital overlay on top of a physical world. Now, what's mixed reality doing is it's actually a blend of physical and digital world where you are basically that basically consists of immersive computer generated environment, but more importantly both physical and virtual environments are interacting here. So mixed reality, if we have to consider from the point of view of augmented reality, so in augmented reality the idea was you are, let's say, getting a digital layer on top of a physical device, but you are not, let's say, interacting with it. That the physical and the digital layer is not interacting with it, but in mixed reality, you can do that. So that's why I mean that augmented reality will be an extension or a, let's say, progress of mixed reality, because it's getting the best of both the worlds, because this is interacting with the physical layer, but at the same time the physical and virtual world are also interacting. So that's what mixed reality is. A very good example of mixed reality would be the Snapchat filter. There are other examples which we can give later on as well, but that's the Snapchat filter is actually a very simple and easy example to follow. Anyway, so ultimately, I won't go through these slides here, but so when we talk about mixed reality, it is a combination of both augmented and virtual reality, where we're getting the best of both worlds by not only getting the digital layer on top of the physical world, but also allowing it to interact with that virtual world. So the virtual and physical world are interacting together. So that's what the mixed reality is all about. Now, the interesting part of the today's presentation was the term augmented virtuality and what that was all about. Now, this was actually a term that's not really used, and the reason is augmented virtuality is a term that first came in this virtuality continuum that was first published in 1994. So it's a very old resource, but what it basically does is talk about the whole range of reality. So you have the real environment, where the real environment was you are interacting in your physical world. You have the virtual environment where you are completely in a virtual setup in an artificial environment. The augmented reality, where you are putting a digital layer on top of that physical world, and augmented virtuality that falls in the middle of it, where the virtual world is actually augmented with real or physical objects, meaning that both real or both physical and the virtual objects can continue or interact with each other. So basically augmented virtuality would fall in as a type of mixed reality. So when we talk about augmented virtuality in this presentation, we're actually talking about mixed reality in particular, and how that basically is the next big thing that will be a big part of our lives in the next few years. So virtual reality and augmented reality is something that we have already talked about, and how that is, and some of you already are quite aware of how that is being used. Mixed reality or augmented virtuality is something that has the potential to be further enhancing the operation or the scope of this area. So in mixed reality or augmented virtuality, however you want to present it, the idea of AR and VR is combined in such a way that you can use both aspects when needed, or you can use them in a combined manner as well. So different aspects that already are thinking about it and to an extent is using it is, let's say, in the automotive industry. So initial designs phase of a car. So let's say the idea now is manufacturers are providing a perfect picture of how the vehicle may look and perform on the road. let's say using apps such as Microsoft HoloLens, which is a very popular mixed reality app, they can explore and modify different designs at the primary stage of the designing phase. So you are looking at different, changing different aspects of the design and see how it might look like and how the system might operate. So this actually is not only just putting it, not only collecting the digital data from the real environment, but you are actually putting it in a virtual setup where you are making changes to it and interacting with it to see how it looks like. That's where the term mixed reality comes in. So you are getting the digital data from the physical device, but instead of interacting on it on the physical level, you are actually using it in a virtual environment to further enhance and test some things. Okay. So ultimately, that actually connects to the second point of the manufacturing stages. So, which basically it's doing is the manufacturing stage or the different stages. Now you can automate it because in a virtual environment, you are getting a lot of information that's helping you rather than having to do that manually. Similarly, prototype discussion in a virtual world. So the introduction of mixed reality, it allows the automobile designers with a virtual laboratory where you can check issues such as, let's say, ergonomics, crash test, which is again a very important thing, which used to be done with dummies. Now you can do it in a virtual environment. And I think this one we won't really cover again, but this has been covered many times of the virtual training. So any industry, the training can be done with the help of VR and AR. Similarly, with the manufacturing, as I mentioned, the employee training, the visual sequencing, what that basically is talking about, the step-by-step instruction of an assembly process, right? Instead of having to do it on in person to test how it's operating, you can do that in a simulated environment like this, but at the same time, you can get the data from the physical environment and put those information in the digital setup to see how you can further improve the process. So quality assurance, I think someone is mentioning about that one. So blending digital information into real world, it enables like the teams or the on-site teams to validate the quality of their work and identify the discrepancies in real time. So as a result, they are benefiting from a short communication loop with the office team. So what the mixed reality is doing in this case is they are helping to embed the quality assurance in the production process by enabling the real-time like visual analysis of the assembled project. So by ensuring how the product might look like and through the changes and whether the operation is working or not, you are actually making the quality assurance process much more efficient than it would have been. Other than guessing, you are actually checking it in a virtual environment and you are making more of a calculated approach. So that's basically in this manufacturing industry. Similarly, with the power industry, I think the training we already mentioned about that. So the employee instruction or that basically falls under that. Inventory management is another very important information. Data generation, I think basically what they're talking about here is there are various sources that might provide data and that can ultimately be sourced and for example, let's say utility companies can use this data to approximate the extent and location of the damage. Basically, that's what it can do. Besides that, you have the improved customer service as well. So the improved customer service, basically what it does is it, by combining AR with, let's say, things such as artificial intelligence, a utility worker can communicate with the customers using smartphones to troubleshoot issues within the house. Imagine that. So you are actually improving the customer service to a large extent by allowing it to be much better than what it was before. So these are some of the examples. Because we're running out of time, I'm unable to go through all of them at the moment. So that's my fault. But yeah, So again, in the mining industry as well, one of the main issues in the mining industry is the safety. So instead of having to go to like face-to-face work, a lot of it, the workers can actually, the employees can use technology to test a lot of those aspects of the mining work in a using VR and AR technologies, which is making the process a lot more safer as well. And I think someone was also mentioning about the medical industry as well. So with the medical industry again, and that's another area where the mixed reality will be very helpful as well. So the idea will be that you can collaborate remotely in real time. So you can get information or advices from different colleagues in real time, and that will help you connect and make further better decision. You might be able to have a real-time video platform where you are connecting more information, like in a virtual operating theater. So, and you're operating there from a remote location using technologies such as VR and AR. That's what enhanced surgery is all about. Efficient medical training. So I think more than any industry, in the medical industry, if you are doing training using VR, that can be of quite benefit because you are not impacting someone's life or a dead corpse. You are actually doing it, how the operation should be proceeded in that setup. So that's basically the different uses of augmented virtuality or mixed reality. Now, I'll just take 1 or 2 minutes to quickly explain what future holds. Now that we have discussed about Industry 4.0, where all devices are connected with each other, the next step is Industry 5.0, where the idea or the proposal for now is you go beyond what has Industry 4.0 done, where the idea was removing humans from the operation floor and bringing in robots. But the idea is you will be bringing robots back to the operation floor where robots can work alongside humans. So that will be the idea for Industry 5.0. So all these connected devices plus the robots working with humans in an Industry 5.0. The other aspect that's very popular and that's evolving is Society 5.0. So the idea with Society 5.0 is people will be working alongside, people in a smart city will be getting technological help that will make their lives a lot smoother and easier. So all the different aspects such as medical health, such as transport. So let's say you are hungry, you order through an app and the food gets delivered through an automated delivery service, something like that. So they will all be connected. Okay, so that's the idea for Society 5.0. So all the different technologies, whether let's say you have a heart monitor connected and it somehow there is a problem, you fell down, and that will be automatically notifying a hospital that will be sending a automated car for you to, yeah, like a hospital, and will send some paramedics in there. So that's Society 5.0, where technology is making life easier. So the idea is that with Society 5.0 and Industry 4.0, technology will all be connected and not only improving the industry, but also improving the lives of people. And as Industry 5.0 will come into play as well, with robots being part of it, it will only be enhanced. So ultimately, the idea will be in future, it will all be a connected society where people will be getting their benefits from the different aspects of life, but it will not just be limited to just your lifestyle, but it will be in the industry as well, and just different technologies that will be critical part of it. AR and VR
Thanks, AK. Sorry, my connection almost just dropped out just before you changed the slide. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. No,
Um,
that's all right. I think I froze as well. So, but that's all from me. Thank you.
no worries. Thanks, AK. Look, before we wrap up the session, I would just like to note we have a few upcoming webinars that you could register for if you're interested. So we have one next week. If anyone is interested in civil engineering, we've got the importance of considering the 3 sustainable pillars in construction. We have another industrial automation webinar in a couple of weeks. It's on a Wednesday though, and it's a bit earlier than this one, about 4 hours earlier. And that one is on industrial automation, Industry 4.0, and smart factories. So there's a few similarities between this one and that webinar, I would say. But if you're interested in seeing another session and a different presenter as well, that would be a good session to register for. And then I've also included this one, the using gaming technology to improve industrial digital twins. That one will be next month, and that one is being presented not by one of our lecturers this time. This one is being presented by someone from Sentient Computing, which is a company based in Perth. So that could be interesting as well. But I'll be updating the events page on our website regularly, so just check for any other webinars that are upcoming. And just a quick overview of our courses. So as mentioned at the beginning, I kind of briefly touched on what courses we offer at EIT, but basically this gives you an overview of kind of when our courses are starting. So our short courses, our professional certificates, as well as our diplomas and advanced diplomas, they all have different intakes and dates throughout the year. Every course has different frequency of intakes and different intakes. So it's best to check the schedule page. I've included the link there at the bottom of the slide, but basically the schedule page will show you all of our courses, all of our intakes upcoming from the most upcoming to the latest. And then we've got our undergraduate certificates and bachelor's degrees starting on the 25th of July. So they're our online versions. The application deadline for those is actually not next week, the week after, I believe. Our graduate certificates and master's degrees are about to start. So the next intake for those are the 2nd of January next year. And then a similar thing for our Doctor of Engineering. I believe the application deadline is passed for that one as well. So the next intake for engineering is the 20th of February. So all of those courses I just mentioned are all our online courses. We're mostly online, however, we do have on-campus bachelor's, master's, and a Doctor of Engineering programs. So, and our on-campus programs are starting the 1st of August. So that's our next intake for those. Now, if anyone would like to request a certificate of attendance, you need to fill out a quick form or survey, whatever you like to call it. But basically, I'll just put the link in the chat there for everyone. There's no need to provide your email address. Unfortunately, you need to request a certificate through the form or survey. Please don't provide your personal email address in the chat box. It's not necessary. And this is the only way to request a certificate if you would like one. It's not mandatory. But you can either scan the QR code on the screen there with your phone if you have it there, or just click the link that I've just posted in the chat, that QR code link. And I've also got the certificate ready as well. So if you complete the form of the survey in the next 5 to 10 minutes or shortly after the webinar, I'll be sending those out in the next, I would say, 20 minutes or half an hour. Okay, I'll just pop that link in the chat box again, as I will be changing the slide. Okay, so that basically concludes the webinar for today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and thanks again to AK for and I'm sure everyone really enjoyed it. Now we will take questions, but I just like to leave this slide up. So if you do need to go, thank you very much for attending today. But if you still have time, or if you want to ask some further questions for AK or myself, please put them in the chat box, and we'll try and ask them for you while we're live. I think we've got one question there for you, AK. It's from Eureka. What are some problems with augmented reality?
Yes, thank you. I think mainly, expense is one of the things that I mentioned. Security and privacy issues, they're still not sure about, because again, it will all be about data. So those could be mainly the issues. But the main thing with their night would be the lack of proof. I think very few models have actually been provided yet. So that is the main thing. So I think until more gets executed, I think the lack of proven models is what is stopping it from flourishing as much as it could.
Great, thanks, AK. Demisi, so our master's degrees, so we have a pricing model that is based on country or region, and we deal with several different currencies. So it would be best to check our website, go to our website, and just under the how to apply drop down, there's a fees page there for you, and you just need to input your country of residence, and it will show you the relevant fees for all of our courses. So that's the best way to check that. Yeah, same thing with the other questions for fees. It's best to check that that page. There's a question there from Victor AK. Is extended reality same as MR?
Extended reality actually covers MR, AR, and VR. So extended reality is, let's say, MR falls under the umbrella of extended reality. Yes.
Thanks,
I think Kenneth also has a question. Sorry, Riley. Do you think AR can be introduced in the construction industry? Yes, Kenneth. I think it will be similar idea that training can be a very important part, where VR can be useful. Again, with the AR, idea would be as more, let's say, think of, yeah, because you would know more about the construction industry as than me, but think about the ways where you are trying to make the process a bit more digital. That's where, let's say, if you can add more information about different aspects of that work, and you are adding a layer, like a digital layer. So let's say you're looking at an app through a device, and that's providing you more digital information with that construction process that helps you with that. That's where there is a room to add that AR in that area. And of course, VR is much more set up, the simpler, because that helps you with training.
Thanks, AK. There's a question from Kishan. So our courses at EIT, we've obviously got a range of different courses. We do have slightly different durations in some of our qualifications. So it is best to just have a look at the course pages, and please talk to our course advisors as well. They can definitely help you with that. But yeah, if you're referring to our bachelor's degrees, they are 3 years. That's if you're studying full time. but if you're studying part-time, it's the equivalent of that. Timothy, yeah, please speak to one of our course advisors if you're looking for entry requirements advice. And Quasar, the EIT office to visit in Perth, yeah, no worries. Yeah, we'd be more than happy to for you to come and visit us. So we're on our head office is on the slide there. So we're on Wellington Street in West Perth, and you can visit us anytime. And one of our course advisors should be available to speak with you. Otherwise, you can always give us a call or send us an email. But yeah, you're more than welcome to visit us. There's a few requests for the certificate form. I'll just pop that in the chat box again. Okay. Ace, yep. So basically, I've just posted a link in the chat box. You can it's just a short form or survey that you need to complete. It will only take you about a minute or two. And basically, once you've completed that, I will send you a certificate. I've got the certificate already prepared for this webinar. So if you fill it out now or in the next 5 minutes or so, I should be able to send it to you in the next 20 minutes or half an hour. Okay, I think you're answering some questions in the chat box. Thanks, AK. Samuel, are you going to be exempted modules when you enroll for bachelor after advanced diploma? Yeah, so we do offer some credit if you've studied one of our advanced diplomas. You will likely get credit, some credit for particular units, and it all depends on what advanced diploma you studied and what bachelor's you're going into. If you're talking about an external advanced diploma, so not an EIT advanced diploma, you'll need to make an application, to request that you're exempt from particular units. But there is a formal application process for that, and one of our course advisors can advise you on that. Abraham, we don't have a Slack community, unfortunately, but yeah, we may look into that for the future. There's a question here regarding the use of augmented reality and mixed reality in health integrated into the treatment of Alzheimer's patients. Which of your courses will help me in this regard? I'm not sure what your response would be to that, AK.
I think I responded. We don't have courses that are teaching AR or MR at the moment, hopefully soon, but I think we have an advanced diploma in biomedical engineering. So
yes,
hopefully that's probably the closest here. So yeah. Great,
thank you. Yeah, so we do have that advanced diploma in biomedical engineering. That's the only course that we have in biomedical engineering at this stage. But as AK mentioned, I believe we would be creating courses in the near future, including more augmented reality and mixed reality. And Abraham, the cost of the bachelor's, it's best to just check the fees page, as it's a per country or per region basis. Okay, if there's quite a few questions there. I think we got through most of them. I'm not sure if you want to answer any more, AK, but I believe we're pretty much out of time. However,
yeah, I responded to most of the technical ones, Riley. I think if there is any, I don't think I missed any regarding the.
Okay.
topic related. Yeah.
Cool. No worries. All right. Well, if anyone does have any further questions, please reach out to us. And if you want to send me an email directly, just send an email to that email on the screen there. So webinars@eit.edu.au, and I will respond to your email directly. Or if it's for a question for a different department, I'll forward that on. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for attending, and we hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. All right, see you next time.